Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing graffiti removal and maintenance of brick structures and other building structure types. Today, with us, we have some gentlemen from Ram Construction Services. Before I introduce them, I just wanted to go over a couple quick housekeeping items as well. So, first off, if you have any issues with the webinar, close down the webinar, click the link that was sent to you, sign back in that way. Likewise, if you're on the phone, just click the link that was sent to you, use the phone numbers, dial back in. That'll solve 99% of the problems you're having. So slides don't seem to be advancing, sound seems weird, things are pixelated, just close things down and get things restarted, and that will take care of your problem. Also, if you have any questions during today's webinar, please type them in as you have them, but we'll be answering questions at the end of the webinar. So just type them in as you have them into the Q&A box or the chat box, and we'll get those answered for you. So with this today, we have Troy Blubaugh and Bill Brown. So to introduce Troy first, Troy Blubaugh is an estimator and project manager in the facade restoration division at Ram Construction Services. He holds a Bachelor of Business Administration with a minor in International Business from the University of Toledo. Troy manages field teams and oversees project scheduling, estimates future work, and coordinates all phases of construction throughout closeout and warranty. Bill is a business development manager with RAM. He leads the strategic planning efforts and identifies new market opportunities and fosters key partnerships. Bill also guides the business development team and manages client relationships. He holds a bachelor's of science in media and communication technology with a focus on sales communication from Michigan State University. So, Bill, before we get started, do you want to introduce the gentleman with you today?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Joe Gabrias. He's our lead superintendent. Um, Joe is responsible for all of our field operations and everything after the sale. So he makes sure the projects go well, go smoothly. And the reason he joined the call with us is for any of the technical questions. He's our technical expert. I find the opportunities. Troy puts together the estimates for him, and then Joe runs with it after that. So that's how the three of us work together. And if you'd like to, before we get started, if you'd like to take a photo of those QR codes, that'll be our contact information. We'll also show that at the end. But first of all, thank you all for attending. Devin, did you have any other housekeeping
Oh,
items?
you guys are ready to go.
All right, wonderful. So we sort of kicked off the introductions, who each and every person is, but a little bit more about RAM. We've been in business for over 100 years. We are building envelope experts. So we work on the facades of the most historic churches, to universities, to hospitals, and everything in between. Everything from the roof line down to below grade is our specialty. We have a concrete division. We also have a facade division that pertains to this presentation. Another thing I like to note is I like to touch on the amount of horsepower we have. We have over 700 field workers going currently at this moment, another 200 folks in the office. And so really there is no job too big or job too small. We look at them all. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Troy so that he can take the presentation from here, talking about the graffiti removal, the techniques, the technology, and why it's important to kick it off.
Good afternoon, all. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Uh, Graffiti is obviously a big eyesore for any building, for anybody around. And some of the techniques and stuff that we use is cutting edge, which gives us the abilities and the opportunities to make sure that we can remove this graffiti from your side of your building in a very harmless act on the stone facade, brick facade, and we're able to get that back to its original liking on the side of your building. So a lot of the time that we get into it, depending on what we see, where it's at, location and everything like that, is going to depend on really what items we use and the process that we do to get through it. I will tell you one thing, I'm not going to touch on every single one of these items. It'll be easier if we can get through this and everybody got questions, but the main point of these are the biggest thing that a lot of building owners and management need to look at and deal with is the very, very first item on here is experienced contractors taking care of the graffiti removal. If you do not have an experienced contractor that's doing it, they can harm your building a lot further than it is with just graffiti sitting on it. So to make sure that you're dealing with a contractor that knows what they're doing, get some good background on them, get some information on them, and see if they can get you some pictures of before and afters of what they've done. That's the biggest thing, and making sure that the contractor knows what surface they're dealing with. Without knowing that is not going to help them in any shape or form trying to figure out how to remove it without damaging the outside facade of your building. A lot of the times people will come in with chemicals, some people do the peel. A lot of this is the ability to get it off, but again, it can also harm the building. There's some stuff that can go on the side of the building that will actually turn your building orange. So I don't think you want to have a gigantic orange building or spots all over your building that are orange. So again, just like we're saying, a lot of the solutions are the chemical way that we're going to be talking about here in a few seconds is going to be the clear blasting. And then a lot of the time we can have some companies come through and actually stain the brick to match its surrounding. It's actually, correct me if I'm wrong, is Knockout the company or Knockout the
That's correct. Knockout is the company that would apply the stain to the building to match the existing brick around the building. You can back up just a second. It's really important to understand your substrate. So, a qualified contractor that is looking at your building is going to first analyze what substrate they're working with, what type of stone it is, if it's sandstone, limestone, terracotta, if it's Mankato, if it's just brick, if it's CMU, you need to have that background. You need to know what you're dealing with in order to know how to remove the graffiti that's attached to it. As Troy was alluding to, that you can definitely do more damage to the building than the graffiti that's on the surface of the building if you don't know what the substrate is and you don't know the tolerances within that substrate. So, for example, sandstone is extremely absorbent. It has a very high absorption rate in that stone, which means whatever you apply to it is going to not just be on the surface, it's going to absorb up to a quarter inch into the stone. If you apply a material that is harmful to that building, you are going to definitely cause problems far greater than the graffiti could ever cause. So we use as gentle a process as possible. To start with the less invasive and abrasive types of materials, but also, like a jaw system or a clear glass system that would be very gentle to the substrate instead of harming the substrate. Go ahead, Troy.
That answers the question perfect. Again, just like what Joe touched on, what I said also, clear blast is a technique that we use that we're very comfortable with. One of the few companies around that actually do this sort of removal. It is actually built around the use of the main use is little teeny, for lack of better terms, glass pellets. And yes, that sounds very abrasive, just like what Joe was saying, but these machines are built in a way that you can take the PSI down to a certain level to not harm the building, but also be able to get your graffiti removed from these surfaces. These glass beads are not the only thing that can go through this machine. There's some other methods that we can do to also get this through. But the biggest thing of this is we've been through the training. We know the process. We know how we deal with this. And for somebody just to go out and actually just get this machine, as you can see, it's going to be in the $50,000 range, and just turning your groundskeeper or your property management guy loose on the side of a building with this could cause many issues. So again, that's where it goes back to making sure that you get in touch with the correct contractor to make sure they know what they're doing and they can go ahead and take care of it.
Troy, this is sort of our secret weapon, right? And we're talking about graffiti removal, but what other projects have you used this machine on?
This machine has also been used on just an idea, Toledo Museum of Art. We've used it on the Toledo Museum of Art on marble.
What was the purpose?
They actually had staining on there of rust was inside the marble, and we were able to get that removed with the clear glass machine itself. Can you speak on this one a little bit better than me, Joe?
Absolutely. So the clear glass machine, as Troy was alluding to, we first started entertaining the thought of using this machine to do masonry cleaning. And then we found a lot of use for it, right? So there's a lot of masonry cleaning where we're removing stains, atmospheric stains, carbon, whatever that stain may be, to bring back its original luster. In many cases, we have historical societies, we have preservation societies, we have a lot of people that do not want anything introduced to the building that could harm that building's historical value. So we started looking into this clear glass machine. We were utilizing it in many different cases. The first large job that we utilized it for was St. Joe's Catholic Parish in Detroit. We removed all of the carbon staining off of the sandstone on this building. There were dozens of mock-ups that were performed to try to remove this stain in a very gentle fashion, for lack of better terms that everyone would understand. We used many cleaners in just probably 24 chemical agents that we did small mock-ups on, and sandstone that has similar stains that was off the building so that we could determine whether or not it was going to be harmful. And then we landed on this product, which is the clear glass machine. What you see here in those photos is the medium that we utilize when we're using the clear glass machine. Troy mentioned that there are several different mediums that are available to be shot through this machine. This is, in fact, one of the most gentle. The clear glass machine using this glass medium, it's called green grit. We operate at a PSI that is down to 35-40 PSI. So you could literally put it against your hand and blast your hand, and you are not going to feel it penetrate your skin. It's going to remove the dirt from your skin. It's amazing. Does the same thing to the building. So it's kind of one up, and what gives us an edge on some of the competitors is not only the machine, but how to use the machine. It takes a lot of time to tune it in to the point where you're able to achieve the directed results that you are looking for without that harmful procedures that you'll see from other contractors and just other people that are trying to remove this staining. A lot of people will go at it with chemical agents and then power washing. A power washer turned down has more detrimental effects to the substrate on a building than this clear glass machine would have.
I think what I'm hearing here, the main point on this slide is regardless of the contractor you select, require them to do mock-ups to dial in so that they're not harming your building and land on the solution that you're happy with, your architect's happy with, everybody's on board with before you cut a big contractor to do a large scale operation.
1,000,000%.
So this is sort of the step-by-step workflow, just to kind of get you an idea of what you should expect of a contractor, and I'll let Troy jump into it.
Again, just like what they were both saying, mock-ups are the biggest thing. So once we commit out to your job site, we take a peek at the building. We're going to look and see how bad is the graffiti, where the location is, what is the graffiti on? Is it on the sandstone? Is it on marble? Is it on brick? Knowing those pieces to the puzzle will let us be able to do a mock-up on that area and know exactly what Joe was saying, the PSI we need to run with, the type of media, the glass, how much we're putting at it, and in all honesty, really how close or far away we are to the building actually when we're doing this is going to make a big difference also on how much we can actually get off, when we can get it off, and without harming the building, which all of our people have gone through the training. We know how to do that, which sets us apart a little bit on that aspect. But once we get all those mock-ups put in place, everybody's good on the same page, just like what Bill mentioned is at that point in time, we can go ahead and move forward with your peace of mind, knowing that when it's all gone, you're not going to have any bigger issues on a building. You're just going to have the graffiti removed completely.
And I'd just like to piggyback on what Troy said. So here you see this chart and it has site visit and paint testing. One thing that Ram holds paramount is safety. We really focus on keeping not only our guys that are performing this work safe, but pedestrians that are around us, anybody that may come into contact with this process. We want to make sure that they're safe. We obviously will wear all of our personal protective equipment necessary in order to perform the work. But I can't guarantee you that a person, 50 yards away is also wearing PPE. So that paint testing is basically an analysis that we would be doing to determine whether that paint contains lead. It's a lead containing material. We're going to treat it a little bit differently. We're going to contain it. We're going to make sure that it does not become what we call in the industry friable, which would become airborne. And that would possibly harm, somebody that's around that is going to be exposed to that airborne material. That's why. Good.
Good.
Covered the site visit inspection on the last slide. And this is something that will often come out and put together for you. So if you're able to see that there, we'll walk the entire building. We'll call out necessary repairs. Obviously, if there's graffiti on the building, that'll be detailed here. But it's important to get an inspection of your building in addition to the graffiti removal, just to have a better understanding of all the different components and plan for the future to ensure its integrity.
And with that being said, us coming out and doing that report, that is at no cost to you whatsoever. We'll come out and put this together for you, just so one, what we looked at, what we can see. Because a lot of times more than one set of eyes walking around a building is going to be able to see a lot more than just you being able to walk around your building every single day. You might overlook something that we can see that could be potential a bigger hazard that nobody else can pull up.
We touched on the lead and asbestos paint testing here. Generally, turnaround time is 24 to 48 hours. Get a sample, and again, that'll determine how we are going to contain it and how we're going to treat the material and job site safety and all those good things. But here's some good indicators, just visually speaking, beyond testing, that there's likely lead containing in your paint. Mock-ups are critical. It's critical to understand, and one piece of your building that might be sun beaten needs a different technique than one that is never weathered. But again, here's just a recap of what we spoke about earlier, and here's an example of of a mock-up here.
And as you can see, we do it physically right on that same area that we're going to be doing the work on. So you can see the results right there next to each other. And as you can tell, I know this is a cliche, but it's night and day. You can see the difference between what was there, what is taken off, and see the result of your brick and the masonry behind there is still intact. No surface has been harmed with what we have done, and we were able to get that paint removed without a problem.
And they approve the process for the rest of the project. It doesn't just have to be on stone. We're doing it on wood timbers here. Similar technique, different medium, but again, mark off an area, test it out, try some different techniques and see which one makes everybody happy.
Safety. Again, Joe touched on this, but as you can see in the picture, we take the utmost abilities to make sure that our guys are safe, the surrounding area is safe, and if your vegetation is safe. And like Joe was saying, anybody walking along the building, coming around, everybody's making sure that everybody's in the proper area, everything's cordoned off, and to make sure that everybody can go home safely at the end of the night.
Our job sites are very recognizable. Pedestrian safety, worker safety is paramount, but we always provide signage to show people where it's safe to walk, where it's not safe to walk. If we're closing off an entranceway, there's there's a route to get to the next entrance. If the man lift is being utilized, there's someone on the ground making sure that no one comes into the working area. So we take it quite safety quite seriously, because obviously we want everyone to get home to their families. And our jobs are quite recognizable as far as scaffolding goes, fall protection, signage. I dare you to find a Ram job where there isn't a Ram banner on it, right? But it's required of everyone, all the way down to we have 100% glove policy to eliminate hand injuries, to respirators on certain jobs, hoods, Tyvek suits, things of that nature. And this is kind of the example. This is what you'll see on your job site when someone's working, and it details all the different elements of our safety program here, and PPE for the worker. So what do we do with the water?
Water, especially when it is that we have found out that there is lead, we have to contain it totally. And that can go in from laying down tarps in order to try to contain it as much as possible, to sucking up the water as we're going, to move it into 55-gallon drums. Depending on how bad the lead content is there, then it would actually have to go to a certain disposable facility that specializes in just lead. So there's a very, very thin line of making sure that we do not let any of this get into the storm waters, into the sewage system, anywhere around this building, for the simple fact because of all that.
I'd like to add one thing to that. It's not just because of the lead paint. If, in this case, the photo is they're using a chemical agent in order to remove the paint. Most likely it's like a fast acting paint stripper. We have several different agents that we use. But when we're using those types of aggressive cleaning agents, we're also capturing the discharge of that, because like Troy was alluding to, lead paint is dangerous, and so is this. We do not allow this material or chemical to enter a storm drain, any type of runoff. We capture the discharge, and then we'll treat that discharge accordingly.
Great point. So I always bring up Ram University because I feel that it really sets us apart. We have an entire team dedicated to the betterment and the education and the training of our field force. So that way, when you put, another team's A team, our C team is even better than that, right? It's always about constantly improving new techniques. If there's a new machine, you have to be trained on it before you use it. But this all speaks to the level of quality that we bring to a job site. And you know that each and every individual that's on that job site not only had safety training, but they've had years of training to make sure that they're the right person for the job. Do you have anything to add on that?
No, you hit the nail on the head. It's not just, we set ourselves apart, and he kind of said it nicely, but there's not another company that has their own university. The unions that we employ our employers from, they do training to a certain degree. We take that to the next level. Anything that we may be performing, we're training inside of our in-house university, whether it be rappelling from a building to do an inspection, to tuck pointing, to the joss cleaning, to the clear blasting. It really doesn't matter what it is. We work on training up that next generation so that they can, take the baton and run with it. And we know that our clients and customers are getting quality product.
Definitive coatings.
So a lot of historical buildings, they have to meet a standard, which everybody on this webinar understands. So in order to make sure that these standards are met, protecting your building is a big thing, but also going back to exactly what that first slide said was maintenance. If you're able to keep up on the building and keep a maintenance program going, a lot of the time, a lot of the headaches and the downfalls and the trickle down effect can be minimized because you're actually taking care of this all up front. A lot of times, some of these sealers that are going on in your buildings, some of them do not let the brick and the stone naturally breathe. So you need to make sure that you know what the contractor is putting on your building. Is that a system that's one going to be able to prevent graffiti and any other substance from penetrating your building, but also is going to allow that brick and stone and everything to breathe naturally like it does. A lot of times when you see a building that you go by that's either painted or anything like that, and you see just faces of the bricks just blowing off, blowing off, blowing off, it's because there's moisture and everything is getting behind there. It's not letting that building breathe. So all of that's coming through and it's popping in the fronts of all these brick out. So the biggest thing is to make sure that you know what product is being used on your building and to make sure that it is going to allow that stone brick to do exactly what it's meant to do and breathe and let everything dry out from the inside out.
And I think that it's important to have a conversation to see if it's approved in your specific districts. You know, there's different standards that you have to meet for different types of buildings, and we want to make sure that we're keeping the integrity of the building. So further conversations about protective coatings. But if it isn't a historic building and you are able to use some of these products, it truly does make the removal much easier and preserves the substrate beneath. Routine maintenance and inspections. This is a big thing that RAM does outside of just the paint removal, the tuck pointing, the stone replacement and repair, and all these sort of things. But it's important to have your masonry contractor come out and look at your building top to bottom and call out things. And what we like to do is we like to work within people's budgets, right? And so we'll call out things that are emergencies. If there's different sorts of fall hazards, or we see a downspout's leaking and it's starting to eat away your mortar, those things that you need to take care of year one. But then we'll also work with you to put together a budget in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. That way you're not hit with everything all at once, and you can plan for the future and preserve the integrity of your building. But all that comes in a report from top to bottom. We'll go all the way up and down your building from the stairs to your parapet wall as it pertains to the envelope.
So if I might add, everyone has heard that saying, a stitch in time saves 9. It couldn't be any more true when it comes to building maintenance, right? So if you're inspecting your mortar joints, if you're inspecting your sealants, your window perimeter sealants, control joint sealants, all of these things, and making sure that they're getting removed and replaced in a timely fashion, you can avoid many, many larger repairs that are going to be needed down the road. It starts with those sealants and the tuck pointing to create a barrier so that the water can't get in. As soon as the water gets in, then you're going to be looking at large spalls. You're going to be looking at rust on structural steel, a lot of very expensive repairs. So it's important as a building owner to know that you should have a maintenance schedule in order to avoid those larger dollar signs.
And going along with what Bill said with making something, breaking it down over a year's period or anything like that. In all honesty, we can do the same thing if you have a very large building. We can do it by a facade. So you're not even going to be taking such a large chunk out of a budget or anything like that where you can just break it down. As long as you have that maintenance program set in place and you know that over the next few years you're going to be taking care of X, Y, and Z, you're able to get it in the budget If it's an association, you can help them get in the budget, but that way at least everybody's up front and they can see progress happening on the building and knowing that you are taking care of your building and wanting to keep that up, keep going.
But here's an example, and we'll send out the slides after this so you can get a closer look. I'm not sure how readable it is on your screen there, but we'll send out the PDF at the presentation after. So this was probably, shoot, one of the largest graffiti removals in the country. Michigan Central Station, I'm not sure you're familiar with it, but it was the old Detroit train station, sort of the gateway to the Midwest, sorry, St. Louis. And I'm taking it. But some of the photos here are quite stunning. So this was an old historic building opened in 1913, and the Ford family purchased it from the Maroons and decided to what's the total budget on it? 300 million, approaching $1 billion for the entire campus.
I hate to speak on statistics unless I know.
Yeah.
But
It's a lot.
It's a very big chunk.
Incredible project, quite a bit of revenue, as you know. The owner has somewhat deep pockets and they did not want to bar any expense that was necessary in order to bring this building back to its original look, which it is now. It's absolutely stunning.
So from 1988 to 2018, the building sat vacant, and I say vacant loosely because anybody that wanted to could actually get in. And what do you know? They tagged almost the entire building. I don't know how they got up to some of the places that they
I
got.
was gonna say, how many floors? I mean, it was insane, the amount that they did.
Yeah, it was wild. The graffiti was widespread. You would be hard pressed to find a square foot of this building that didn't have graffiti one way or another.
And interesting talking to some of the guys in the field. They were talking about how some of the toughest things they had to remove were the paintballs. People would go in there and shoot paintballs, and because they're driven with such force, they didn't bend into the
Embedded
stone
into it.
and whatnot. But you can see here, I mean, if you want to speak to what they're looking at here, but it's they're using the clear glass machine and just inch by inch.
Yeah, this is the clear glass machine with that glass medium called green grit. There was a lot of people that were apprehensive when you start talking about blasting and abrasive blasting. That name abrasive is in that title, but we try to be as least abrasive as possible. So it was a tough sell on the team that was in charge of the historical credits and the architects and things of this nature. So we had to provide a lot of background information and buildings that we have used this on in the past. They ended up visiting those buildings. We did several mock-ups and there was tests done on those mock-ups to see if any of the composition from that material was lost during the process, and everyone, I have to say, was very impressed with the procedures and the methods, and obviously they turned us loose and allowed us to use that means and methods in order to remove the graffiti from this building.
And if you do get a chance to visit, there were they left time capsules to just show the public like what they were up against. And this is an area where they found it's probably the only area in the entire building they didn't find curse words or lewd pictures, and so they were able to
Salvage at least that area.
right. There's some revisions here and there, but just to kind of give you an idea. But these were the technical specs, generally speaking, that we use to remove the graffiti. And there are some cool pictures coming up here, so stay tuned. So everything from the masonry, from the brick to the terracotta, some more specs. 80,000 square feet, brick restored, 300,000 labor hours, and 120 At our peak, how many masons do we have going at once?
I have to look back. This was a very large project that required um, quite a bit of thought and planning as far as, the materials, the idea of what we wanted to achieve, and then the manpower that it required in order to pull it off. There's very few contractors, in my opinion, that wouldn't be able to take on a project of this scale.
And just touching on what Joe is saying, I mean, obviously you can see this. You saw the pictures, very, very large project. But definitely keep in mind we could come out and do an area the size of a man door. So I mean, we can definitely touch on anything from a 2 hour little project that you need taken care of, that's your headache that we can take care of, or your entire building envelope.
I think that's a great point. We're showing these pictures because it's the wow factor, right? But you know, if somebody puts a peace sign on the side of your building, let us know. We'll come help you take care of it.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's just remarkable how much paint was used in this building. So there's the before and after, and I'll flip back and forth.
And what also is nice to see, especially with this before and after picture, is twofold. One, the amount of layers that you can possibly see that are on this that we were able to get rid of, but also the colors that were used. A lot of people are like, well, that's super dark, or that's, depending on what it is. As you can tell, colors, layers, we're able to take care of it and still keep the integrity of any of the stone and not harm anything from there. That's cool.
Send it to you.
That's a really good one.
It was really tricky to get these two to line up and find the right angles. We had to go to the Ford archive people to get some of these. But I think we've got about 20 minutes left, so
Look at us.
yeah, Devin, if you want to jump in, and if there was any questions in the chat or if any questions came to your mind, please ask.
Thanks again, gentlemen. Yes, if you have any questions, type those into the chat box now. Take a short commercial break here. Just to let everyone know that upcoming, we have our Heritage Ohio Conference. It's going to be in Canton this year, October 14th through 16th. So if you're interested in sessions like this, we have tons of preservation sessions, hands-on stuff, and we also have tons of community revitalization sessions as well. Next week, we'll be having a webinar on historic theater restorations. And so the registration for that one will be going out shortly. It's a little bit of a tight schedule workaround, so we're working through that right now. But look for in your emails for the registration for that one. First question, gentlemen. So if somebody wanted to take off graffiti themselves without contacting you guys, what would you suggest they try to do?
It's a loaded question because I can't really answer that without knowing what the substrate is. So
Let's just say brick.
a brick, start with just some hot soap and water, and a garden hose with low psi. We'll see what that does. In some cases, you're working with a paint that's gentle. Who knows? How much it is absorbed into the substrate. Always start with the least aggressive means and methods, and then work your way up. You want to start with like a spatula before you go to a bulldozer, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And kind of a related question here. Kind of a related question here. Obviously, time matters when something like spray paint is used. The longer it's sitting, the more. How really fast do people really need to be to make sure it's not, you know, soaking in deeply into the porous material?
Usually as soon as it's sprayed on and it has made its initial cure, that paint, that graffiti is done what it's gonna do. I mean, if you're able to, follow right behind the guy that's spraying, you may be able to get it up a little bit or easier, but I would just stop him from spraying. But regardless, once it's on and it's cured, after a couple of hours, it's not going to get any easier at that point.
This is a question for one of the project managers here. If a piece of mortar or brick are inadvertently removed during the process, is that included in the project cost or an extra cost?
When we look at a situation, we factor that in just because we know it's going to happen. We've dealt with it for so many times, so many different situations that when we go out and look at the job itself, we'll look at the mortar, we'll look at the face of the brick or the stone or anything like that. And if we can tell that there's some loose areas around or if there's some areas in question, we will definitely factor that in. Now, that being said, um, we have a job actually right now in Adrian, Michigan that we're doing. And the project manager figured up for 20% tuck pointing because once the removal process was done, that's what he was thinking. Once all that was removed, it was drastically more than that. What was crazy was pretty much the paint was holding the building together. So, in some odd cases like that, it would be something that we would say, oh, red flag, we need to address this real quick. But we addressed it also as the process was going along because we saw it was getting worse and worse and worse as we were going. And we knew for a fact we were going to be well above our 20%. So in those situations, we address it with the owners, we address it with the architects. We bring this up very, very quickly so we can all get on the same page. But if it's going to be the little onesie, twosie areas that we can somewhat see is going to be happening, yeah, that's included.
So the 2 points that I'm hearing there is, A, you're gonna see it called out on the proposal, right? It's gonna be called out for, the repairs after the removal, but I think the key that Troy touched on is communication. So you don't get 100% done with a project and, go back and ask for more money. You're gonna see this happening quite quickly, and at that point, you gotta open up the laptop or pick up the phone and have a conversation and get everybody on the same page and agreeing.
Thank you. Next question here is, and this is a personal question from a building I've observed over time. So back in the 90s, the building it's a sandstone building. It's about 170 years old. And at some point in the 1990s, it had an acid cleaning that was done very poorly, which resulted in staining of the sandstone. And it's kind of a rust stain that was left on the building where they didn't rinse it correctly and kind of damaged the stone. Really, what kind of solutions are available if somebody wanted to correct that on a building?
I mean, really, they the damage is done. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of these burns, and they're chemical burns that are on the substrate and penetrate. It's very, very difficult to remove those burns once you have incurred them. One thing that they could try is maybe a poultice. This is a material that you would basically spread in and then try to get it to absorb that stain out. But I can tell you from, experience and the amount of time that we've spent doing this work that that's a sad situation.
But it brings you back to point one, right? Make sure you have experienced contractors doing this type of work. And then point two gets the mock-ups done so everybody's on the same page to avoid all those sort of things.
Absolutely, Bill. Uh, Sort of a kind of, this isn't a masonry question per se, but we've come across several times with slate roofs in particular, but asphalt roofs as well. What kind of fungal treatments can people utilize? Do you guys have any recommendations for that for people that have mildew buildup or moss growth on their roofs?
When it comes to asphalt roofs,
It's sort of outside of our
can't-
scope. You got us, Devin.
Absolutely no.
There's
No. I think what they're talking about is basically an organic stain, right? What we would refer to as an organic stain. This could be moss and mildew built up on your building in a shady area that never sees any sunlight. These are some of the easiest stains to remove. They can be removed usually with just a power washer with low PSI. If that doesn't work, introduce some hot water and get one of those power washers that actually keep the water prior to them hitting that surface. But those types of stains are some of the easiest stains to remove off of your building.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions, so if anyone has any final questions you want to ask right now, make sure to get that typed in right now into the chat box, and we'll get that answered for you. But once again, I'd like to thank Bill, Troy, and Jeff for doing this today. It's a wonderful webinar, wonderful information for everyone. And we'll be sending out the recording of this tomorrow. So, Bill, if you would just want to send me, if you wanted to, or if you want to do it directly, that's fine with us too. Any of the materials that you had mentioned earlier, and we can get that kind of bundled up for people when it goes out tomorrow afternoon. But otherwise, I'm not seeing any more questions. Let me check the other one just to make sure I'm not ignoring somebody.
And
All right.
they can
Go
always
ahead.
reach out to us after the fact. Here's our contact information. So if something pops in your head when you're driving home, shoot us a note and we'll get you squared away.
Yeah, but if you have any more, we'd be glad to answer them.
All right, everyone. Thanks again to Ram Construction Services for this webinar today. It was absolutely wonderful, and we'll see you at our next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.